The business dinner was at Morton's Steakhouse in Manhattan, one of my dad's quarterly networking events where he gathered his corporate friends and associates. He had insisted I attend, though it was clear I was only invited because my mother pressured him. "It'll be good for you to meet successful people," he'd said on the phone. "Maybe someone can help you find a real career." I was 27, and for the past 5 years I'd been building my logistics software company. But to my dad, if you weren't in a suit in a corner office, you weren't successful. I arrived in dark jeans, a black turtleneck, and boots, practical, the kind of outfit I wore while visiting warehouses. Dad's face tightened the moment he saw me. "That's what you're wearing. This is a professional dinner." I told him it was fine. "You look like you're unloading trucks," he muttered. Sometimes I did unload trucks to understand the workflow, I explained, but he closed his eyes like he was begging for patience. "Please don't talk about your warehouse job tonight." I reminded him it wasn't a warehouse job, it was my company, but he only sighed. Inside the private dining room, 8 of his usual crowd were already seated: executives, finance men, a few lawyers. My sister Jessica was there too, dressed in her designer suit, flawless makeup exuding corporate polish. She looked me over and smirked. Casual Friday came early this week. I sat down quietly while Dad introduced me. "This is my youngest daughter, Nina. She's between opportunities right now," I corrected him gently. "I run a logistics software company." He waved it off to the table. "She works at warehouses. We're hoping she'll transition to something more professional soon." One of his friends, Robert, smiled politely. "What kind of work do you do at the warehouses?" I explained that I developed software optimizing supply chain operations, warehouses, fulfillment centers, distribution networks. Dad cut in again, calling it entry-level logistics work. I could have told them the truth that my company had 127 employees, $340 million in revenue, and clients among the largest retailers in North America, but I'd learned my dad didn't want to hear it. Since I'd dropped out of Columbia Business School, he'd written me off as a failure. Jessica whispered loudly to the woman beside her. "She's been doing this warehouse thing for years. Mom and Dad are mortified." I told her I could hear her. "Good," she said. The waiters brought appetizers, and talk shifted to stocks and real estate. I checked my phone occasionally for updates from my CTO. Tonight, we were deploying new software for a client across 47 distribution centers. Dad scolded me. "Nina phones away. It's rude." I told him I was working. Robert raised an eyebrow when I explained the scale of the deployment. Jessica laughed. "She's been claiming to run this huge company for years, but she works from her apartment and drives a Honda." I calmly corrected her. "I worked from a 12,000 square foot office in Long Island City. I drove a Honda because it was reliable." One of the lawyers asked the name of my company. "Flow State Systems," I replied. He searched it on his phone, paused, then looked at me sharply. "The Flow State Systems? The logistics optimization platform." He turned to Dad. "Your daughter founded Flow State." Dad's smile froze. The lawyer read aloud. "Flow State did $340 million in revenue last year. They're the leading platform for warehouse automation and supply chain optimization. Nina, you're the founder?" I nodded. "Founder and CEO." The table fell silent. Jessica stammered. I explained we started small, proved ROI, and now worked with 18 of the 50 largest retailers in North America. Another friend quickly searched and found an article praising my technology. Robert leaned in, incredulous. "Nina, how many employees?" I told him 127 across engineering, operations, sales, customer success. He asked about funding. I confirmed 12 million in Series A, 45 million in Series B, and Series C was closing soon, though I couldn't disclose details. When I mentioned Sequoia Capital had invested, they nearly choked. Jessica went pale. Dad stared at me like I had grown another head. "If this is true, why didn't you tell us?" he asked. I reminded him that I had for 5 years. but every time he dismissed it as a warehouse hobby. He never asked to see proof, never visited the office, never met my team. Suddenly, the muted television in the corner flicked up in volume. The financial news anchor announced an exclusive interview with one of tech's most exciting young CEOs. My stomach dropped when my face appeared on screen. It was the Bloomberg technology profile filmed in our office 2 weeks earlier. There, I was walking reporters through our operations center explaining how we managed over $12 billion in inventory flow. The segment revealed Flow State's valuation $1.3 billion. My ownership stake 68% put my net worth around $880 million. The table erupted. Jessica gasped. Did she just say billion? Dad whispered the same word like it was foreign. The interview ended, leaving the room in stunned silence. Robert broke it. Nina, are you telling us you're almost a billionaire at 27? I kept my tone steady. On paper until the round closes. Dad sat frozen, his worldview shattering. Jessica's voice shook. You let us think you were working in warehouses. I do work in warehouses, I said calmly, but I also run a billion-dollar technology company. Both things are true. The difference is, you never wanted to hear it. The silence after the Bloomberg segment hung like heavy smoke in the dining room, every person at the table staring at me as though they'd never truly seen me before. Robert, still scrolling on his phone, began reading aloud from an article. Forbes has you on their 30 under 30 list. TechCrunch calls you one of the most influential young CEOs in enterprise technology. The Wall Street Journal says your platform is redefining global supply chains. He lifted his eyes to me, both impressed and a little stunned. Nina, this isn't small. This is industry shaping. My dad's face had drained of color, then returned with an angry flush. Why didn't you tell me any of this? His voice was low, confused, almost hurt. I leaned back in my chair. I did, Dad. Over and over. You didn't believe me. At Christmas, I mentioned Forbes. You laughed and said it must be a different Nina Brennan. At Thanksgiving, I said I was giving a keynote at a logistics conference. You told everyone it was probably just a local meetup. At Mom's birthday, I said we'd closed Series B. You changed the subject to Jessica's promotion. Jessica fumbled with her phone, now scrolling furiously. There's an article here from Fortune, she muttered. It says you worked night shifts in warehouses before launching Flow State. That you interviewed workers, studied every inefficiency. Her tone had shifted softer, less mocking. I nodded. I did. I couldn't build good software without understanding the real problems. Most tech founders sit behind a desk and guess. I wanted first-hand knowledge. Robert shook his head in awe. That's actually brilliant. You went straight to the ground level. No wonder your platform dominates. The lawyer beside him leaned closer. Nina, do you realize how rare this is? A 27-year-old who built a profitable enterprise company in an unglamorous industry? Everyone else your age is chasing the next social media fad and burning through capital. You're generating massive revenue in logistics, the lifeblood of commerce. Dad's phone suddenly buzzed loudly. He glanced down, startled. It's Charles Morrison, he whispered. He's on the board at Columbia Business School, the very school I had dropped out of. He answered hesitantly. Charles? Yes. That was my daughter. Yes, Flow State Systems? No, I didn't realize the scale either. His face reddened as he listened. Then he blinked in shock. She what? A donation. He covered the receiver and looked at me. You donated to Columbia. I nodded, calm. Last year. They asked if I'd support the new entrepreneurship center. I gave $1.2 million. Dad's mouth opened slightly. He returned to the call. Yes, Charles. Very proud. Of course I'll ask her. Thank you. He hung up, still staring. The dean wants you to give the keynote at graduation. He said your gift is one of the most significant donations from a young alum. The table gasped again. Jessica had gone pale. How How did you do all this without us knowing? She asked. My answer was quiet but firm. You weren't listening. You decided I was a failure because I didn't follow your blueprint. You didn't want proof. You wanted me to conform. Robert cleared his throat. If I may, I think even if you had shown them, they wouldn't have believed it until someone like Bloomberg confirmed it. He glanced at my father, who now looked broken. Dad's voice was shaky. Nina, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I dismissed you. I thought you were wasting your potential. I should have believed you. Jessica looked down at her lap, then back at me. I mocked you constantly. I called your work embarrassing. I told people you were unemployed. I thought you were lying. And now, you're about to be a billionaire. Her voice cracked. I'm sorry. Jess, I said gently, your career is great. You're a marketing director doing work you love. That's success too. It doesn't have to be the same scale. Robert's phone buzzed again. He chuckled. The CEO of my company just texted. He saw the interview. He wants to know if Flow State is accepting new clients. I smiled faintly. Tell him to submit through our website like everyone else. We evaluate carefully to make sure it's a good fit. Robert blinked. You're going to make a Fortune 500 CEO apply through your website. We have a process, I said simply. Titles don't change that. The lawyer grinned. I like you. Grounded. Not impressed by titles. Just focused on the work. My phone buzzed in my lap, a text from my CTO: deployment complete. All 47 centers online. 0 errors. Client ecstatic. I smiled, typed back congratulations, and promised bonuses for the team. When I mentioned the update to the table, even the executives who had looked down on me earlier seemed impressed. Dad stared at me for a long time before asking softly, "Can I visit your office sometime? See what you've built. Really understand it." His voice trembled with something that almost sounded like humility. Thursday afternoon, I said. I'll give you a full tour. I'll be there, he whispered. Jessica raised her hand timidly. Can I come too? I nodded. Sure. The rest of dinner was a blur of questions from Dad's friends. They wanted advice, connections, even offers for me to consult or join boards. I declined most. My focus was my company, my team. Later, as I walked Dad to my Honda in the parking garage, he stared at the car. That's really yours? You could drive anything. It's reliable, I told him. That's enough. He shook his head. I taught you not to waste money on status symbols, then spent years mocking you for living that lesson. It'll take time to rebuild trust, I said gently. But Thursday is a start. Back in my apartment that night, a modest one-bedroom in Astoria, I sank onto the couch and stared at my buzzing phone. Notifications flooded in. Investors, journalists, potential clients, even old acquaintances who had ignored me for years. Our marketing director had already texted that website traffic was up 400%, and 50 new client inquiries had come in within hours of the Bloomberg interview. But among all the chaos, one message mattered most. My CTO wrote, "The team is celebrating at the bar near the office. You should come. First round is on you." I smiled, changed into jeans and a t-shirt, and headed out. When I walked into the bar, my team erupted in cheers. Engineers, data scientists, operations, managers. These were the people who had believed in me long before Forbes or Bloomberg, who had trusted me when even my family hadn't. Someone lifted a glass and shouted to Nina, the warehouse worker who built a unicorn. The whole bar laughed and raised their drinks. My CTO pulled me aside. How bad was dinner? He asked, concern in his eyes. Surreal, I admitted. They saw the interview on live TV. Dad's friends nearly fell out of their chairs. My sister realized she's been mocking me for years while I was building a billion-dollar company. And Dad? Well, Dad didn't know how to process it. He gave me a sympathetic smile. They should have believed you long ago. We did. Everyone on this team knew what you were building. Thank you, I said softly. That means more than any news feature. We stayed celebrating until midnight. Laughter stories, the relief of a successful deployment, all of it reminded me why I had sacrificed so much. This team was my family as much as the one bound by blood. When I got home, another message awaited me. From Mom, your father told me everything. I'm so sorry, Nina. I should have listened. We should have believed you. Can we talk this week? I typed back Thursday after Dad visits the office. You can both come. Her reply was instant, thank you. We love you. We're so proud of you. We should have been proud all along. Thursday came quickly. When Dad and Mom stepped into our Long Island City headquarters, their expressions shifted from curiosity to awe. The space buzzed with energy, massive screens displaying live warehouse operations teams huddled in brainstorming sessions, engineers fixing bugs in real time. My dad stopped in front of the operations dashboard, watching streams of data update every second. This is what you built. His voice was quiet. This is flow state, I said. 127 people and soon more. We help move billions of dollars in goods every year. Every package people order, every product on a store shelf, chances are it passed through systems we optimize. I introduced them to team leads, engineers, and operations specialists. Each spoke with passion about the mission. Dad shook hands, asked questions, even smiled when one manager explained how our software had saved a client $3 million in a single quarter. Jessica had come along too subdued and observant. She finally whispered, I had no idea. I thought you were exaggerating. But this is incredible. It's just the beginning, I told her. Later in my office, Dad sat across from me, still processing. I'm ashamed, he admitted. I was so blinded by my own definition of success that I couldn't see yours. I thought you were wasting your potential, but really, I was wasting the chance to know you, to learn from you. I met his eyes. It's going to take time, Dad. You dismissed me for years. That hurt. I know, he said, his voice breaking slightly, but I want to rebuild, if you'll let me. For the first time in years, I believed he meant it. That evening, after they left, I walked the quiet office floor. Screens glowed softly in the dark, showing real-time flows of goods moving across North America. This was the world I had fought to create, not for recognition or money, but because every efficiency mattered. Every saved dollar, every prevented error meant real impact for real people. The interviews, the valuation, the sudden respect from my family, none of that compared to the quiet satisfaction of solving problems no one else wanted to tackle. Success wasn't about headlines. It was about the unglamorous, invisible victories that made the world work just a little better each day. Weeks passed, and the Bloomberg interview continued to ripple outward. Invitations arrived daily, industry conferences, panels, requests for interviews. Some I accepted, most I declined. My priority remained the company. We had international pilots to oversee new AI features to refine, and clients counting on flawless performance during the holiday surge. But something else was shifting. My family, once dismissive, now reached out constantly. Mom called every few days just to ask how I was holding up. Jessica texted me links to logistics articles as if trying to bridge the gap she'd once widened with ridicule. And Dad? Dad showed up. True to his word, he came back to the office. He walked the floors, asked thoughtful questions, and listened not to respond but to understand. It was the first time in years he had looked at me without judgment. At a team meeting one afternoon, he sat quietly in the corner watching me lead. When it ended, he pulled me aside. You're better at this than I ever was, he said. His voice cracked. You command respect, Nina. You inspire them. That's real leadership. I wasn't sure how to respond. For so long I'd craved his validation, and now that it came, it felt almost foreign. But I nodded. Thanks, Dad. That means a lot. Jessica, too, was different. One evening over coffee, she admitted, I used to mock you because I was jealous. You had the courage to walk away from the path everyone else expected. I stayed because I was too afraid to risk failing. She stirred her cup, eyes down. I didn't understand that your so-called failure was actually freedom. Jess, I said gently, your path is valid too. You don't need to compare. She gave me a half smile. Still, I want to be braver. Watching you makes me want to try. Hearing that softened something in me. The resentment I'd carried began to loosen. The outside world, meanwhile, seemed determined to brand me as a symbol. Articles labeled me the warehouse worker turned billionaire, the dropout who outpaced the Ivy League, the woman redefining logistics. Some of it was flattering, some reductive. I wasn't trying to be a symbol. I just wanted to solve problems no one else cared enough to fix. Yet one moment stood out. A warehouse supervisor from Ohio emailed me directly. Your system saved us 3 hours per shift. That means my team gets to go home earlier and see their families. Thank you. I read it twice, then 3 times. That was the kind of impact that mattered, the human scale, not the headlines. At the end of the year, Dad invited me to another one of his dinners. I hesitated, remembering the humiliation of the last one, but he insisted, promising it would be different. And it was. This time, when he introduced me, his voice carried pride. This is my daughter Nina, he said firmly. Founder and CEO of Flow State Systems, one of the fastest-growing enterprise software companies in the world. The respect around the table was instant, but I noticed something else Dad didn't need to inflate or explain. He simply presented me as I was, and that was enough. Later, walking out together, he said quietly, I wanted you there because I wanted to show them, but also because I wanted to show myself. I see you now, Nina. I really see you. It wasn't a perfect reconciliation. Years of dismissal don't vanish overnight. But it was a start. At home that evening, I reflected on how strange success is. People resist it when it doesn't fit their expectations. They mock it when it's invisible. They celebrate it only once it's undeniable. And through it all, the work remains steady, demanding, vital. For me, the lesson was clear. You can't live to convince people who don't want to understand. You have to build for those who do. The rest will catch up, or they won't. And either way, it doesn't change the mission. Months later, the whirlwind of publicity had calmed, but the work at Flow State only grew more intense. We expanded into Europe, launching pilots in the United Kingdom and Germany. Our AI-driven predictive analytics began reshaping how retailers anticipated demand, reducing waste and shortages. Every day, I watched the software we'd once tested on whiteboards now drive billions of dollars of goods seamlessly across borders. But in quieter moments, the personal changes mattered more. Dad had become a regular visitor at the office. Sometimes he came just to sit in meetings and listen, other times to walk with me through warehouses. He admitted one day, while watching conveyor belts hum under our system's control, I used to think real work meant suits and skyscrapers. Now I know it's this people technology solving problems that actually matter. His humility was new and real. Mom, too, grew closer. One Saturday morning, she joined me at a client site. She watched as workers used tablets running our software, their shifts running smoother, errors almost eliminated. She turned to me, eyes misty. I should have believed you all along. I hugged her, then something I hadn't done in a long time. Jessica surprised me most. She began exploring her own entrepreneurial idea, small at first, a sustainable fashion platform. She came to me for advice, but more than that, she came with respect. You proved it doesn't matter if the world thinks you're failing, she said once. If you know the value of your work, that's enough. The contrast between then and now was striking. Where once I'd sat at dinners humiliated, now I sat as an equal, sometimes even the one people turned to for insight. Yet I carried the memory of those years of dismissal, not as bitterness, but as fuel. They reminded me that validation from others is fickle and belief must start from within. One evening, after a long day, I returned again to my modest apartment. I could have upgraded, but I still chose simplicity. Luxury never mattered. Impact did. I opened an email from a distribution center manager, Your system prevented an inventory error that would have cost us over $2 million. My team is less stressed, and my company is finally ahead instead of always behind. Thank you. I leaned back, letting the words wash over me. That was success. Not the headlines, not the valuation, not even the reluctant pride of my family. Success was knowing that what I built made life better for others. Looking back, I realized the deeper lesson wasn't about money or prestige, it was about perception. People often judge based on appearances: the car you drive, the clothes you wear, the job title on your business card. They see only what fits their framework of success. But real achievement doesn't need their permission. It grows quietly, often unseen, until one day it's undeniable. At 27, I was labeled a near billionaire. But the title meant little compared to the message I'd send to anyone doubted, dismissed, or underestimated. You don't need others to believe in you for your work to matter. Keep building. Keep solving real problems. Let the results speak louder than the voices telling you you're not enough. Because in the end, the greatest validation doesn't come from headlines or family approval. It comes from the people whose lives are touched by what you create. So if you've ever been overlooked or told your dreams are small, remember this: the world may not see your vision yet, but that doesn't make it less real. Keep going. Keep proving it, not for them, but for yourself, and for the people who will benefit in ways they don't even know yet. Thank you for staying with this story. If it resonated with you, don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and leave a comment about your own journey. Your voice matters here.